Two things that I've been reading a little bit about, and it's still not particularly definitive, which is part of why it's really interesting, is kind of figuring out the way that the adaptive immune system is responding to this disease is one. The way that the lungs are recovering from this disease is another. And also, thirdly, these odd cases that we've now been seeing where young people are getting sick. They sometimes do then actually require hospitalization. And despite the fact that they might be young and not have any other various health problems that predispose them to complications, they might still end up dying in some cases. So I've been reading a little bit about all of those things. To begin, the thing about the immune system that's quite interesting is we're not entirely sure if everybody's immune system is actually developing a long-lasting adaptive immune response after being infected. And this might explain what we spoke about on the last stream about how there are apparently stories where some people seem like they're being reinfected. That could potentially be somebody whose adaptive immune system just didn't develop a long-lasting, long-term antibody response, and so they were not actually immune to the disease even though they had already been infected with it. So we're still not entirely sure how that works and whether or not that's a genetic thing or it has to do with what strain of, what substrain of virus you were infected with and the genetics of the substrain of virus. We don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe the immune system is coming up with some kind of partial solution to the problem that isn't like a full 100% defense against the virus. So if the virus, maybe it makes the virus go away the first time, but then it comes back and the body can't deal with it.
Exactly. It seems like it might be in those cases as though the body responds in a manner that's sufficient enough to help it fight off the virus, but that it doesn't have a pre-primed immune system that's ready to knock that virus out the second it comes back. And so the virus comes back, is able to replicate, and then the only way to get rid of it is to have another full-blown immune response.
This may be a silly question, but is it possible the virus might be hiding out somewhere in the body?
Kind of laying low.
Viruses are capable of doing that. That's not something that the coronavirus is necessarily thought of or associated with that type of behavior, but it's not to say that that is physically impossible. Now, in the case of the lung problem, something that we also don't know is we don't know if recovery from the disease means no long-lasting problems, particularly for the elderly. There's some evidence that suggests that you might potentially be disposed to changes in breathing that might last a lot longer than the actual course of the virus itself and may potentially be permanent. So we're still not sure what's happening there. And then, the last thing which connects back to the lungs and the immune system is understanding the genetic basis of the response to the disease is something we don't really understand very much. We're trying to get at as well as, why is it that a young person sometimes is healthy and gets the disease and is fine, but that sometimes they also get killed by it, even though they have no other health problems, for example, or why does someone not develop adaptive immunity?
Could it be one thing they found in this Iceland study is that there was all these different versions of the virus, depending on if the person in Iceland got it from a UK source or a Spain source, or it seemed like there's a lot of little minor mutations of it. Could it be that it's the strain that's determining whether, it's going to potentially hit a young person very hard or not?
That certainly would be one very important factor in the response that somebody has to the disease. It's the actual genetics of the substrain that they have there present in their nation or present in the place where they got infected.